Broadcasting from New York City to the world, it's the G-Man Interviews.
Welcome. Over the last 2 weeks, many of the national news networks and publications have reported on the case of 16-year-old honor student Darrin Manning. According to a report on phillyinfocus.com, the young man was allegedly sexually abused by a member of the Philadelphia Police Department during a stop and frisk. After the incident, Manning, a star player on his school's championship basketball team, had to be transported to a hospital for an emergency procedure in an effort to repair damage he suffered to his genital area. The incident has outraged many in Philadelphia, particularly those residing in communities of color, and has placed a spotlight on the growing level of anger, distrust, and frustration that minority communities have for Philly's finest. Joining me to discuss the Manning case, his conversation with the alleged victim, and what's being done to address the problems that exist between the department and communities of color is Dr. Damone B. Jones, Sr., senior pastor of the Bible Way Baptist Church in Philadelphia. On November 5, 1986, Dr. Jones was licensed to preach by the late Dr. Hiawatha Coleman, the former pastor of the Mount Zion Baptist Church in Philadelphia. Dr. Jones graduated from the Lamberton High School in June of 1984 and the Retz Electronic School in May of 1986. His early theological training includes Manna Bible Institute and the Center for Urban Theological Studies. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree and a Master of Science degree from Philadelphia Biblical University, now Came University, in Langhorne, Pennsylvania. Dr. Jones also holds a Doctor of Ministry degree from the Palmer Theological Seminary, the Seminary of Eastern University. He served at the Philadelphia Youth Detention Center as a coordinating chaplain. In addition, he served as a panelist for the District Attorney's Youth Aid Panel, president of the Police Clergy Program in the 19th Police District, and member of the Board of Directors for the Carroll Park Community Council. In 2001, Dr. Jones was appointed by Mayor John F. Street to the City of Philadelphia Board of Ethics. In 2006, he was appointed by Mayor Street to a Blue Ribbon Commission on Children's Behavioral Health in the City of Philadelphia. In 2008, Dr. Jones was appointed by Mayor Michael Nutter to the Advisory Board of the Mayor's Office of Community Services, and appointed again by Mayor Nutter to the Philadelphia Board of Ethics in 2009. In 2010, he was appointed by Mayor Nutter to the Board of Trustees of the Philadelphia Prison System. Deeply concerned for the reduction of crime in the community, Dr. Jones was the first president of the Organized Anti-Crime Community Network, which brought the first national conference on preventing crime in the black community to Philadelphia. Dr. Jones spent significant time collaborating with the police and the district attorney advocating for young people in court. As a community leader, he has assisted and accompanied 4 homicide fugitives in turning themselves in to the authorities. Under Dr. Jones's leadership, Bible Way Baptist Church became an approved community service site for the City of Philadelphia's Department of Adult and Juvenile Probation. More information on the pastor and his accomplishments is available via the link posted in the description area. Thank you very much for joining us for this discussion, Pastor Jones.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
I'd like to start with the most obvious question. How were you informed of the incident?
I was actually kind of browsing through Facebook because our church has a Facebook page, and I came across the story that was posted by a good friend of mine who happens to be the coach of the young man that we're talking about today.
And how soon after the incident did you meet with Darrin Manning and his family?
Probably the next morning, early the next morning, before his classes began. He had surgery that night, and so I met with him the next morning.
And were you summoned, or did you take it upon yourself to visit with the family?
No, I wasn't summoned. I took it upon myself to visit with him.
And when you first saw the young man, how would you describe his demeanor?
Very timid, quiet, not an aggressive kid by any stretch. He was having difficulty walking because of the surgery that literally had just had hours before, and so eventually they needed to put him in a wheelchair. But he came in that day after having just had surgery because he wanted to take a test that he was scheduled to take in school that day. He's a straight A student.
Now, for legal reasons, I realize that you may not be able to offer much in the way of details regarding the altercation that took place between Darrin Manning and the Philadelphia police officer or officers accused of abusing him. but are you able to provide an overview of what allegedly transpired?
Yeah, what's been reported is that Darrin, along with somewhere between 8 to 10 males, all African American, were coming out of the subway station at Broad and Girard here in Philadelphia. Apparently, their CEO of their school gave all of them, and I guess other students at the school as well, hats and scarves, because on that particular day, our temperature here in Philadelphia was around 4 degrees. So she'd given them all hats and scarves. They were coming up out of the subway, and the story is that they were wrapping themselves up. The police, according to the report that the Daily News was able to obtain, says that the police saw these males as wearing masks and looking suspicious, that kind of thing. And so, and then there's another part of the story where someone says that one of the kids said something to the cop because the cop was looking at them. Police officer turns the car around, they all run. The young man in question stops because he figures he hasn't done anything wrong, so why run? And of course the police catch up to him, and that's when the alleged abuse begins.
You received a tremendous amount of praise for your work with troubled youth in the city of Philadelphia. And you've indicated in various online and print publications that Darrin Manning is far from what you would classify as an at-risk or troubled youth. Please explain.
Well, I haven't known him long. I've done a lot of work with troubled, at-risk kids in the city, and have some on-the-job training with it in terms of places I've worked. And I currently serve on the Board of Prisons for Philadelphia, so I've been doing this from the time I was 19 years old. I'm 47 now. So it's not all that difficult for me to spot, at-risk youth. And when you meet Darrin, as I said earlier, he's a very quiet kind of a kid. His coach actually says that, Darrin is a basketball player as well. Another basketball player from another team wanted to get physical with Darrin, wanted to fight him, and Darrin just refused to respond to it. And he even said a number of times, if he hits me, I'm going to take the hit because then the other kid will get thrown out of the game. So this is not a kid that goes around looking for trouble. He's not a kid that has been in trouble. If you look at his report card in the column that talks about behavior, he gets all ones, which at that school for the most part suggested that he's by all accounts a good kid. I mean, he's well kept, very close to his mother and his grandmother. And, it's anyone who has worked with kids over an extended period of time will be able to see that clearly.
There's growing interest in this story from people across the country, and many have proclaimed the officers involved should be fired. They cite the fact that Manning had to have emergency surgery on his genitals as justification. Again, you've met and spoke with the alleged victim. Are you absolutely convinced, given your vast experience working with and assessing young people, that Darrin Manning was sexually abused by an officer of the Philadelphia Police Department?
Well, let me say it this way, and obviously all of this is still under investigation, and there's some details that still need to be worked out as we speak. I do understand some level of police procedure, and let me also mention I am pro-police and always have been pro-police. I am anti-bad officer, and so I don't like to paint a broad brush across the entire Philadelphia Police Department, because I believe we have a number of overwhelmingly good police officers, and yet you always will have a couple who will overstep their boundaries or possibly use unnecessary force. So in this case, as it relates to the alleged officer grabbed his genitals, and he felt a pop, a pulling and then a pop. That's what Darrin has reported. He also has reported that the female officer who did this also felt his behind, in his words. So on the surface, yes, it looks like a sexual assault. And then if you talk to police officers, they'll tell you that there is procedures where they search individuals for drugs. Pretty often males will hide drugs in those areas. So, as I said, it's still under investigation. We still need to figure out exactly what happened and exactly, how Darrin felt about it, but also exactly what police procedure actually says.
Have you met with or attempted to meet with the Philadelphia Police Department officials to discuss this matter? And if so, how did they respond?
Well, I've talked to some of police officials, And, I talk to them all the time over different issues that happen in our community, and by and large, they've been very helpful, and they continue to be very helpful even in this case. And, I do want to go on record as saying I feel like in Philadelphia we have one of the best deputy police commissioners and one of the best police commissioners that we could possibly have. I have a lot of confidence in these gentlemen and how they handle these kind of cases. And our commissioner is one of those kind of commissioners that really, runs his organization, I think, pretty well. More officers have been terminated under Commissioner Ramsey than in many in recent history. So I needed to say that. And then all of the decisions are not his. We have a police board of inquiry, and sometimes the decisions are made by them. So there's a couple of different ways that these things are handled. So I've had some conversation with them, and they're very, they are investigating. And if there is some wrongdoing on the part of the police department, I'm hoping that, justice will be served from that end.
You mentioned the police commissioner, and Commissioner Ramsey was invited to appear on the show with you to discuss the Manning case and the growing level of dissent within communities of color. The commissioner declined to appear, but he did submit an official statement on department letterhead about the case and the status of the investigation, which reads as follows. This letter is dated January 29th. Dear Mr. Toms, on behalf of Police Commissioner Charles H. Ramsey, I want to thank you for the invitation to speak on your program about the unfortunate incident involving Mr. Darrin Manning. I regret to inform you that the Police Commissioner must decline your request due to the open internal investigation currently underway by the Philadelphia Police Department's Office of Professional Responsibility. The Commissioner would be grateful if you could share with your audience the preliminary information uncovered by the assigned investigator. The initial investigation has recovered video capturing segments of the encounter Mr. Manning had with members of the Philadelphia Police Department at the intersection of 15th Street and Girard Avenue. The video depicts several civilians standing nearby the encounter, as well as a SEPTA trolley. And what is SEPTA?
SEPTA is our public transit system.
Okay. SEPTA trolley stopped at the intersection with several passengers disembarking. We are hopeful that one of these unidentified passengers or passers-by may have been in a position to be a reliable witness and report their observations to the internal affairs investigator. If the family or attorney for Mr. Manning participates in your program, please ask that they contact our Internal Affairs Bureau so that he may provide us with an interview to further the investigation. Once again, thank you for the invitation to participate on your show. If during the course of your program you come into contact with any person or persons who may have been in the vicinity of 15th Street and Girard Avenue on January 7th, 2014 at approximately 2 p.m., please encourage that person to contact the Philadelphia Police Department's Office of Professional Responsibility at 215-685-5022. And I'll give that number again, 215-685-5022, and ask to speak with the assigned investigator. Regards, Lieutenant Kevin Long, Office of the Police Commissioner, for Charles H. Ramsey, Police Commissioner, Philadelphia Police Department. Would you care to comment on the statement?
Well, I mean, I think it is what it is. I mean, he is the police commissioner, and, they will not move on things until they've had what they believe to be a thorough investigation. And so I do know that they are in the middle of it. There have been some issues, I believe, with the counsel for Darrin. So, I mean, I didn't expect this to happen overnight, or the commissioner to go too far, or the district attorney for that matter to go too far with details about the case when they haven't finished their investigation. And these things are very important. They have long-lasting results, and they affect a lot of people's lives, and I would not expect them to rush these kinds of things.
Sure. Understood. As previously noted, an official investigation is underway. If the investigation concludes that the officer or officers did not act inappropriately, and they're completely vindicated, have you considered what you or your church might do to deal with potential blowback from the community?
Well, I always like to promote good relations between police and community. Our church is planning in this year, actually, to do a series of forums where police and law enforcement and the judiciary and all those folks can come out to the church for a forum where they can engage the church and the community to help to improve relations between the two. If it is found that they, for the most part, didn't do anything outside of the normal course of what they're expected to do in terms of their official jobs as police officers, I still think we need to pay close attention to how people are handled, and in some cases manhandled, by Philadelphia police. And because one exonerated does not mean that something didn't happen that's unnecessary.
Anything you'd like to say in closing?
Well, I think that it's important for people to know. I mean, this is another case of an African American male, to be specific, that's had a really harsh encounter with Philadelphia police. If you look across the country and over time, we've had so many different cases of police brutality. If you can go all the way back to Amadou Diallo in New York, or Oscar Grant in 2009 in Oakland, California, or Aaron Campbell in Portland, Victor Steen in Florida, Jonathan Farrell in Charlotte. I mean, the list, just goes on. And, Sean Bell in New York, and all of these people who had, very difficult encounters with police, and all the people I just named were murdered, actually, or killed by police. And in many of those cases, the officers were, for the most part, not held accountable or exonerated or returned to their jobs. This contributes, in my mind, to why a group of young black males would turn and run when they see a police officer. I think it's on the church, the community, to kind of stand together, work together, and also to work with police to try to limit those incidents and help us to understand each other and work together so that we can have much less incidents of this kind of interaction between police and citizens.
Thank you very much for being here and providing your personal and professional assessment of this case, Pastor Jones.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
That's it for this edition of the G-Man Interviews. Before signing off, an update on the episode The CIA and the Nelson Mandela Files. I contacted Todd Ebitz, media spokesperson for the CIA Office of Public Affairs, and forwarded the episode in order to give the agency an opportunity to present its side of the story. The agency issued an email statement, but indicated that it was off the record. Thus, I was not able to disclose the content of the email. I challenged them on the need for transparency and the public's right to have as much information pertaining to Mr. Mandela's case file as possible. The CIA agreed and issued a second statement via email, which simply said, "If you need an on-the-record statement from us, please feel free to say the CIA declined comment." I'm the G-Man, and until next time, stay cool, stay safe, and stay informed.